My name is Ellie. My mother passed away when I was 10 years old. I lacked maternal love, so when my father got married, I was glad that I would have a mother. But I was wrong, and because of my stepmother's lies, my own father threw me out of the house. But this is not the end. The most interesting part is yet to come, so write from which country you are watching this video, and I will begin my story. The sky was a dull, washed-out gray the day we buried my mother. I remember staring at the clouds, willing them to cry with me, but they didn't. The rain had already come the night before, and now the world was dry, cold, and silent, like someone had paused the world out of respect. Or maybe it just didn't care. I was 10, old enough to understand that forever meant she wasn't coming back, but too young to know what to do with the hole that opened up inside me. I stood next to my father at the cemetery in Sacramento, clutching a faded photo of Mom in one hand, the other hand dangling by my side until he reached down finally and squeezed it. Not tightly, just enough to make me feel like he remembered I was there. There were people around, mostly quiet, some dabbing their eyes. My aunt, Mom's sister, sobbed openly, and the sound sliced through the air like broken glass. But my father, he didn't cry. He just stared at the coffin like it was a problem he didn't know how to solve. That was when I first noticed her. Cassandra. She was standing across the crowd, near the trees lining the cemetery's edge, dressed in a navy blue coat that didn't seem quite somber enough. She wasn't crying either, but she wasn't cold like Dad. She smiled at people, gentle smiles, like she knew exactly the right amount of sadness to wear. Later, someone told me she was an old colleague of Dad's from some project. I didn't think much of it at the time, until the weeks after the funeral when she began to appear again. First at the house, bringing casserole dishes and warm cookies. Then at my school concert, sitting next to Dad and clapping extra loudly when my name was called. She had a daughter, too, Chloe, a girl about my age with perfect braids and pink glittery shoes. Chloe smiled at me like we were already friends. I wasn't sure how to feel. Grief does strange things to your heart. It makes you long for normal, for warm hands brushing your hair and someone calling you sweetheart when you wake up from a bad dream. I wanted that again. I wanted Mom. So when Dad told me 6 months after the funeral that he and Cassandra were getting serious, I didn't cry. I smiled because I thought maybe this meant I'd feel safe again. "She's wonderful," he said, adjusting his tie in the mirror. "And Chloe's sweet. You'll like having a sister." Sister. That word felt strange in my mouth. I didn't protest. Not when they started spending every weekend at our house. Not even when I saw Dad laugh for the first time in months, loud, belly laughs at Cassandra's jokes. It made something tighten in my chest, but I told myself it was good. He was healing. We all were. On the day of their wedding, Cassandra wore a lace dress that shimmered when she moved. The ceremony was small, just family and a few friends, held in a park near Roseville, where we lived. I stood beside Chloe in matching dresses, holding a bouquet of white lilies. When Dad said, "I do," he glanced at me, smiling like he wanted me to feel part of this new beginning. I smiled back, even though my stomach twisted in knots. Because in that moment, I wasn't sure what I was supposed to feel. Hope, or something else I didn't yet have a name for. The day Cassandra and Chloe moved in, the air in our little house felt charged, like everything was just a bit too clean, too perfect. Dad had vacuumed twice that morning, and I'd been told, kindly but firmly, not to leave my toys in the living room. I didn't mind, not really. I was too busy watching Chloe, who twirled into our home like a dancer on stage, her pink suitcase trailing behind her. She ran from room to room, commenting on the wallpaper, the smell of cinnamon candles, the backyard swing. "It's cute," she said finally, as if delivering a verdict. Then she turned to me and smiled. "We can share my hair clips if you want." Cassandra followed, her arms full of shopping bags, calling out cheerfully, "Girls, let's start fresh. This house is a home now, all of us together." Her voice was soft and sugary, but I liked the way she called me sweetheart every time I passed by. That first night we had spaghetti with meatballs, Cassandra's special recipe. She set the table with cloth napkins and poured fizzy grape juice into real wine glasses, just for fun. Dad looked happier than I'd seen him in a long time, chuckling as Cassandra fed him a bite with her fork like they were in a movie. Chloe giggled. I giggled too because it felt like that's what you were supposed to do. After dinner, Cassandra sat next to me on the couch while I did my math homework. She leaned over my notebook, correcting a small mistake and brushing my hair out of my face. "Smart girl," she whispered, tapping my nose. Your mama would be proud. The mention of my mother tightened something in my chest, but I didn't cry. I swallowed it down, grateful for her kindness, grateful that someone was noticing me. Maybe this is what normal feels like, I thought. Maybe after all the sad, gray days, life could feel warm again. The next few weeks passed in a kind of pleasant blur. Cassandra kept the house spotless, always humming some cheerful tune while she cooked or cleaned. She started packing Chloe and me matching lunches, PB&J sandwiches with apple slices cut into stars. She drove us both to school in her red SUV, playing pop music and singing along with exaggerated flair. Chloe would giggle, and I'd try to join in even if I didn't know all the words. Sometimes, when I'd come home with a good grade or a drawing I was proud of, Cassandra would pin it on the fridge. "You're so talented," she'd say, pulling me into a quick hug. "Your mother must have been an angel." She always said that, your mother, never your mom. I noticed, but it didn't bother me then. It sounded respectful, even reverent, and I wanted to believe she meant it. One Sunday morning, I woke up to the smell of pancakes. Cassandra was in the kitchen, flipping them expertly, her hair in a neat bun. Chloe sat at the table already, sipping orange juice from a striped straw. "Morning, sleepyhead," Cassandra called to me. "Your plate's warming in the oven. I made extra chocolate chips just for you." I smiled, padding barefoot across the tile floor. It was strange, but nice. Like a dream I didn't want to wake from. That afternoon, we all went to the park together, Dad, Cassandra, Chloe, and me. Chloe brought her kite, and I brought the faded photo of Mom that I always kept in my pocket. The one where she's holding me as a baby, laughing like the sun. I watched Dad push Chloe on the swing, his face lit with joy, and I sat on a bench next to Cassandra. She wrapped a blanket around our shoulders, shielding us from the breeze. "You doing okay, Ellie?" she asked softly. I nodded. "It's hard, I know," she continued, her voice lower now. "But I want you to know something. I'm not trying to replace your mom. I just want to be someone you can trust, someone who's here." My throat tightened, but I nodded again because what else could I say? I wanted that. I wanted someone to be here. Over the next few weeks, little routines formed. Cassandra always left notes in our lunchboxes, small, cheerful messages like, "You've got this," or "Smile bright today." She braided my hair in the mornings, helped with book reports, even brought cupcakes to school for my birthday. Chloe and I shared a room by then. Cassandra had redecorated it, lavender walls, a white bunk bed with sparkly curtains, and a rug shaped like a cloud. Chloe got the top bunk, of course, but I didn't mind. At night, we whispered across the room, talking about school or silly dreams. Chloe could be a little bossy sometimes, and she had a habit of borrowing my things without asking, but Cassandra always said, "It's good practice learning to share." So I tried to be understanding. There were small moments, barely noticeable, where things felt off. Like when Cassandra corrected me in front of Dad for chewing too loudly. Or when Chloe rolled her eyes and said, "You're so weird, Ellie," and Cassandra just laughed. But I told myself it was fine. Families adjust. That's what people always say. One evening, after Dad had tucked me in and kissed my forehead, I lay in bed listening to the sounds of our house. Cassandra's laughter floated up the stairs, mingling with Chloe's chattering and the clink of dishes in the sink. I hugged my photo of Mom close to my chest and whispered, "It's okay now. They like me. Things are good." I believed it. I had to. At first, it was little things. So small, in fact, that I wasn't sure they were happening at all. The first time I noticed, I was folding towels in the laundry room. Cassandra had shown me how. "Fold them in thirds, then in half like a spa," she said, her smile so wide I dared not ask what a spa was. I followed her instructions carefully, pressing each fold like it was sacred. But when she walked in and looked at my stack, her face tightened. "Oh, Ellie." She let out a soft sigh, picking up the top towel. "See, this edge isn't quite straight. If you're going to do something, sweetheart, do it right." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I nodded quickly, refolding the towel with shaking hands. Chloe, watching from the doorway, giggled and mimicked, "Do it right, Ellie." I laughed too, nervously, hoping Cassandra would laugh as well. She didn't. She just gave me a tight pat on the shoulder and walked away. It was nothing. I told myself that a dozen times. Everyone has preferences. I could fold better. A week later at dinner, I was quiet, too quiet, apparently. Dad was talking about work, and Cassandra was recounting some story about Chloe's spelling bee when she paused mid-sentence and turned to me. "Ellie, darling, you've hardly said a word. Are you feeling okay?" Her tone was light, but her eyes were sharp. "I'm fine," I murmured, pushing peas around my plate. "Maybe try being a little more. Engaged, she said, smiling at Dad. Chloe always tells the funniest stories from school. Chloe perked up. Oh, Ellie fell in the mud during recess yesterday. My cheeks burned. It was an accident. Cassandra laughed a little too hard. Well, we all have our clumsy days. Next time, sweetheart, try to stay upright. Mud stains are a nightmare. Dad chuckled distractedly, and the conversation moved on, but something in my chest curled up and stayed small. That night, I stared at the ceiling from my bottom bunk while Chloe snored softly above me. I thought about the way Cassandra's voice had shifted, still sweet, but with a blade underneath. I thought about the way Dad hadn't noticed, or maybe he had and didn't care. The next morning, Cassandra didn't braid my hair. I'm running late, sweetheart, she said breezily, brushing past me with Chloe's lunchbox in hand. You can manage, can't you? I nodded. Of course I could. I tied my hair back into a lopsided ponytail and pretended not to care. Things kept slipping, subtle shifts that made me question myself more than her. One afternoon, I got home from school to find Cassandra rearranging my bookshelf. She was holding a dog-eared fantasy novel I'd read at least 5 times. Don't you think you're a little old for these stories? She asked, flipping through it. Maybe it's time for something more sophisticated. I like them, I said quietly. She smiled, but it wasn't kind. Of course you do. She set the book down and walked away. I picked it up, hugging it to my chest, and wondered what sophisticated meant, and why liking the wrong thing made me feel so small. At school, Chloe had started to change too. She used to walk beside me in the hallways, but now she floated ahead with a group of girls who wore glittery lip gloss and rolled their eyes at everything. One day, I overheard her at lunch. My stepsister's weird, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. She talks to a photo of her dead mom. Laughter erupted around her. I sat frozen, my sandwich forgotten. Later, when I confronted her in our room, she shrugged. It was a joke. It wasn't funny. You're just too sensitive, she snapped. Mom says you need to toughen up. I said nothing. There was nothing to say. I began to notice that Cassandra never found fault with Chloe, only me. If we left our shoes in the hallway, mine were careless. Chloe's were playful. If I spilled juice, I was sloppy. When Chloe did it. Oh, accidents happen. I tried to be better, quieter, tidier, invisible if I had to be. Dad didn't see, or maybe he didn't want to. One Saturday, I came home with a certificate from school, first place in the art contest. I ran to the kitchen, holding it out proudly. Look, I won. Cassandra glanced up from chopping carrots. That's nice, sweetheart. Then she turned to Chloe. Don't forget, your piano recital is coming up. We'll need to practice. I stood there, the paper trembling in my hands, waiting for Dad to walk in to notice, to care. He didn't. That night, I tucked the certificate into my diary next to the photo of Mom. I whispered, I miss you, and felt the ache of absence like a weight on my ribs. The next day, Cassandra caught me in the hallway. You know, Ellie, people notice things. When you sulk all the time, it makes you hard to like. I'm not sulking. She leaned in, her voice silky. Smile more, be pleasant. No one likes a sour face. I smiled. Of course I did. And somewhere inside, I wondered, was I sour? Was I hard to like? Maybe I was the problem. The night of the school talent show, I nearly didn't go on stage. I had signed up weeks ago, back when things still felt bright, when Cassandra called me sweetheart and Chloe braided my hair without complaint. Back then, I thought singing Mom's favorite lullaby would make her proud, that maybe Dad would hear me and remember what it was like when we were just the two of us. But now my stomach twisted into knots as I waited backstage, the echo of Cassandra's voice in my head. Are you sure that's the best song choice, Ellie? People might not understand it. You don't want to bore the crowd. Chloe had laughed, perched on the arm of the couch like a queen. She sings to herself all the time anyway. Why not make it public? Dad hadn't said anything. He never did. I clutched my sheet music, the paper crinkled from my grip. The auditorium buzzed with noise, parents chatting, kids running up and down the aisles. I peeked out through the curtain and spotted Cassandra in the audience, her blonde hair in its usual perfect twist, laughing at something Dad said. Chloe sat next to them, flipping through the program. They didn't see me. They never really did. Ellie! I turned sharply, startled. An older woman stood behind me, her silver hair pulled back neatly, kind eyes peering over wire-rimmed glasses. She wore a dark blue coat and held a small notebook. You probably don't remember me, she said softly, but I remember you. I frowned, confused. She smiled. I'm Margaret Collins. I was your mother's best friend. I froze, staring. She used to talk about you every day. Mrs. Collins continued, reaching into her coat pocket. She pulled out a small envelope. I saw your name in the program and came tonight to hear you sing. I blinked hard, trying to steady myself. You knew my mom. She nodded, her voice warm. We sang together in college. She had the purest voice just like you. Something inside me cracked open at those words. No one had mentioned Mom's voice in years. Cassandra always skipped over her, and Dad, well, he acted like saying her name would break the room. Mrs. Collins touched my arm gently. Whatever happens tonight, just sing for her. That's enough. I nodded, unable to speak. My name was called. The lights dimmed, the crowd quieted, and I stepped onto the stage, the weight of 1,000 tiny moments pressing on my chest. For a second, I couldn't see anything, just the blinding lights and the roar of blood in my ears. Then I spotted Mrs. Collins in the third row, smiling up at me, hands folded. And I remembered Mom's voice humming this lullaby to me on stormy nights, her fingers brushing through my hair. I opened my mouth and sang. Soft and clear, the melody floated through the auditorium. I didn't think about Cassandra or Chloe or even Dad. I thought about Mom, about the way she would look at me like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. When the last note faded, silence held for a moment. Then applause, loud and warm, filled the room. I glanced down and saw Mrs. Collins clapping, her eyes glistening. Cassandra clapped too, but her smile was tight, almost forced. Dad nodded, but his gaze slipped away quickly, already distracted. Chloe barely looked up from her phone, but it didn't matter because something had shifted inside me. After the show, I found Mrs. Collins waiting near the exit. That was beautiful, Ellie, she said, handing me the envelope. Your mother would be proud, never doubt that. I took it with trembling fingers. Thank you. Keep singing, she whispered, then slipped into the crowd. When I got home that night, I tiptoed into the attic, the only place that still felt like mine. I sat on the old trunk near the window, moonlight casting soft patterns on the floor. Inside the envelope was a note, written in careful script. Ellie, your mother was the bravest person I knew. She always believed in truth, in kindness, and in standing tall no matter how hard the wind blew. I see those things in you. Stay strong. Stay kind. The world needs your voice. With love, Mrs. Collins, I held the note to my chest, tears slipping silently down my cheeks. Then I tucked it into my diary, behind my art certificate and the photo of Mom. Armor, that's what it felt like. Not the kind you wear on your body, but the kind you carry in your heart. Winter came early that year. Not the kind with snow. Sacramento rarely saw more than frost. But the kind where the sky stayed gray for weeks, and the air inside our house turned cold in ways I couldn't explain. Cassandra's laughter, once so frequent, had faded into clipped sentences and sharp glances. The warmth I'd once clung to like a lifeline had cooled, and now I was left wondering if I'd imagined it all. She didn't call me sweetheart anymore. Now it was just Ellie, and sometimes not even that. Where are the clean towels? She'd ask, standing in the hallway, arms crossed. I put them away, I'd reply, nervous. In the wrong cabinet again. Her voice was flat, no longer pretending. Pay attention next time. I'd nod, whispering apologies, and retreat to my room. Our home, once filled with the hum of music and clatter of shared meals, grew quiet. Meals were eaten quickly, dishes washed without conversation. Chloe chatted endlessly with Cassandra about school dances and nail polish colors, but when I spoke, Cassandra's eyes flicked toward me with polite disinterest. My father, he had disappeared into silence. He started working late, always late. When he did come home, he'd sink into the couch, eyes fixed on the TV, nodding along to whatever Cassandra said. Sometimes I tried to talk to him, to tell him about a book I liked or something at school, but his answers were distant. That's nice, honey, ask your stepmother. So I stopped asking. One Friday evening, I came downstairs to find the kitchen door locked. I tried the handle again, confused, and knocked gently. Cassandra opened it a crack, her face shadowed. Dinner's already done, she said coolly. You took too long with your chores. I was studying. Her smile was sharp. There's leftover rice in the fridge. Don't expect special treatment just because you're busy. Behind her, I saw Chloe at the table, laughing at something on her phone. The smell of fresh baked biscuits and roasted chicken filled the room. My stomach growled. I nodded silently and backed away. I ate cold rice in my room that night, trying not to cry. At school, things weren't much better. Chloe had become popular in a way I never could. She floated down hallways surrounded by admirers, always laughing, always loud. I stayed quiet, ducking my head when she passed by. Once at lunch, I overheard her telling someone, Ellie's just, sensitive. Mom says she likes to pretend she's a victim. Laughter followed. I swallowed hard, poking at my sandwich. It wasn't true, was it? Was I just pretending? I started hiding in the attic after school. It was dusty and cold, but it was mine. My diary stayed tucked behind an old trunk, safe from Chloe's snooping. I'd sit by the small window, legs curled under me, writing about things I couldn't say out loud. Things like, I miss Mom. I think Cassandra hates me. I don't know who I am in this house anymore. One afternoon, I found a box of old photographs buried beneath the attic insulation. Inside were pictures of my mother, laughing, holding me, standing in our backyard garden. Her eyes sparkled, even in still frames. I traced the edges of her face with my finger. Would you have let this happen? I whispered. Silence. Sometimes I tried to speak up. One evening, Cassandra told Chloe she could go to a friend's party, but when I asked to attend a school outing, she shook her head. It's not a good idea, she said, slicing vegetables with precision. We can't always indulge whims, Ellie. It's not a whim, I said quietly. Everyone's going, it's for a class project. She turned, knife still in hand, eyes narrowing. Are you questioning me? My breath caught. No. Dad walked in just then, setting his keys on the counter. Everything okay? He asked, his voice dull. Cassandra smiled sweetly. Just helping Ellie understand boundaries. He nodded. Good. That was it. Good. I wanted to scream. Instead, I went to my room, shut the door, and cried into my pillow. One night, I overheard them in the living room. She's just difficult, Cassandra said. She's moody, always sulking. She's been through a lot, Dad replied, but his voice lacked conviction. I'm trying, but it's exhausting. Chloe's so easy. Ellie's always needing something. Silence. Maybe she should stay with your sister for a while, Cassandra added. Just until things calm down. My heart pounded. They wanted to send me away. I didn't wait to hear the rest. I crept back upstairs, my legs shaking. That night, I wrote in my diary, I don't belong here, I'm invisible. But somewhere deep inside, a spark still flickered. The note from Mrs. Collins. My mother's photo. My own voice on that stage. I wasn't nothing. I had to remember that. I don't remember what started the argument. Maybe it was the college brochure left on the table, the one I'd picked up from the guidance office at school, the one that made my heart race with possibility. Or maybe it was just another morning of silence, the kind that stretched and thickened like fog, swallowing any trace of warmth in our house. All I know is I found the brochure crumpled in the trash can. Stained with coffee, the front page torn, the university logo barely visible beneath a smear of something oily. I pulled it out, smoothing it with trembling fingers. What happened to this? I asked, holding it up as Cassandra walked into the kitchen. She glanced at it, completely unfazed. Oh, that. Probably Chloe, you know how she hates clutter. She threw it away, Cassandra shrugged, opening the fridge. It was on the table. If it mattered, you should have put it somewhere safe. My throat tightened. It did matter. Her eyes flicked to mine, calm, cool, distant. Ellie, not everything is a tragedy, it's just a piece of paper. No, I said, my voice rising. It's not. It's from the university I want to go to. I've been looking at their program for months. You didn't even ask. You're being disrespectful, she snapped, shutting the fridge hard. Lower your voice. I'm not. Chloe strolled in then, still in her pajamas, hair in perfect curls. She took one look at the torn brochure in my hands and smirked. Oops, that was yours, I stared at her. Why would you throw away my stuff, she laughed. It was ugly, I thought it was junk mail. You knew it wasn't. Enough, Cassandra's voice cracked like a whip. This is not how we behave in this house. You're shouting, causing drama, because you let her destroy my things. My hands shook, the paper fluttering to the floor. You always take her side. Cassandra crossed her arms. She's respectful, she listens, you sulk, you accuse, and you make life miserable for everyone. That's not true. It is, she snapped. I've tried, Ellie, God knows I've tried to help you adjust, but you're impossible. My heart pounded. I'm not impossible, you're cruel. Her face twisted, a flash of something dark flickering in her eyes. How dare you? Chloe gasped theatrically. She's unhinged. The room spun. My legs felt weak. I turned to my father, who had just come in from the den, rubbing his eyes like he'd been napping. Dad, I whispered. Tell them this isn't right. He blinked at me, groggy and disoriented. Cassandra pounced. Ellie's yelling again. She just called me cruel in front of Chloe. He looked at me then, not with anger, but exhaustion. Like I was a burden too heavy to carry. Ellie, he said quietly, can't you just... Stop making this harder than it has to be. I'm not, I choked on the words. I'm not making this hard, I just want to be the victim, Cassandra finished coldly. You always want pity, poor Ellie, orphan Ellie. That broke something in me. You're not my mother, I hissed. And thank God for that, she shot back. I wouldn't have raised a child who behaves like this. My father didn't move, didn't speak, didn't defend me. He just sighed long and low and turned away. That night I packed a backpack, my diary, Mom's photo, the note from Mrs. Collins, a change of clothes, toothbrush. Nothing else felt like it was mine. I waited until the house was quiet, until Cassandra's footsteps faded down the hall. As I crept to the front door, the floorboards creaked beneath me, betraying my escape. A light flicked on. Cassandra stood there, robe wrapped tightly around her, arms crossed. Where do you think you're going? I froze. I'm leaving, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She smiled. Oh, don't be dramatic. You always do this, run away from your own behavior, but let me make something clear. She stepped closer, her voice low and dangerous. If you leave this house tonight, you don't come back. I met her eyes. Good. I opened the door and the cold hit me like a slap. Rain poured in sheets, soaking me in seconds. Ellie, she called as I stepped into the storm, don't expect your father to come looking for you. I didn't answer. I didn't look back. I walked, block after block, the rain driving into my skin like needles. I didn't stop until I reached Rachel's house. The porch light glowed like a beacon. I rang the bell once, twice, and the door flew open. Rachel's face crumpled in shock. Ellie, she gasped. Oh my God, come in, you're freezing. I fell into her arms, shaking. I'm sorry, I whispered, clutching her tightly. I didn't know where else to go. She hugged me fiercely. You're safe now, you're safe. Rachel's apartment was small, just 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, and a living room that doubled as a dining space. But to me, it felt like a palace. There was no shouting, no cold silences, no Cassandra lurking behind every corner with a list of things I'd done wrong. Just Rachel, her warm smile, and the soft hum of a life that didn't revolve around control. You can have the futon, she said that first night, dragging out a pile of blankets. It's lumpy, but it doesn't bite. I tried to smile, but my face felt frozen. The events of the evening clung to me like the rain still soaking my clothes. Rachel handed me a towel and a pair of her pajamas, loose and soft, and for the first time in months, I let myself cry. Not the silent tears I'd learned to hide, but the deep, aching sobs of someone who had held in too much for too long. Rachel sat beside me, holding my hand, saying nothing. She didn't need to, just being there was enough. That night I fell asleep on the futon, wrapped in a blanket that smelled faintly of lavender and safety. The next morning I woke to the sound of sizzling. Rachel was in the kitchen flipping pancakes with exaggerated flair. Morning, sleepyhead, she called. Hope you're hungry. I sat at the table, watching her move around the kitchen, humming to herself. I don't want to be a burden, I said quietly. She looked at me, spatula in hand, eyes serious. Ellie, you're not a burden, you're my best friend, you needed a place and this is it. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. I'll get a job, help with groceries, rent. We'll figure it out together, she said. 1 step at a time. Those steps started small. I returned to school, clutching my backpack like a shield. Most people didn't ask why I wasn't living at home anymore. Chloe's circle spread rumors, whispers about me being too dramatic, hard to live with. But I didn't care, because I wasn't pretending anymore. I had Rachel, I had peace, and I had plans. After school, I helped Rachel at the local coffee shop where she worked part-time. The manager, a woman named Doreen with wild curly hair and a no-nonsense attitude, took one look at me and said, You want hours, you got 'em, just don't burn the espresso. I smiled for the first time in days. That job saved me. It wasn't glamorous. I swept floors, wiped tables, fumbled through latte orders. But every dollar I earned was mine. Every hour behind the counter was a step away from Cassandra's grip, from Dad's silence. Rachel and I made it work. We shared groceries, split bills. On weekends, we studied together at the kitchen table, the apartment filled with the soft scratch of pencils and the occasional outburst of laughter when Rachel's cat, Pepper, knocked over our notebooks. Life was hard, but it was mine. Graduation came fast. I stood in line with my classmates, cap askew, hands trembling. Rachel squeezed my hand. You made it, she whispered. You did this. When they called my name, I walked across that stage with my head high. I looked out into the crowd, not for Cassandra or Dad, but for Rachel, who whooped so loudly the principal winced. We walked home together, diplomas in hand, the sunset painting the sky in gold and rose. That night we ate cheap takeout on the floor, laughing until our sides hurt. I applied, I said suddenly, pulling out a letter from my backpack. Rachel's eyes widened. To the university, I nodded, heart pounding. They have a scholarship for students who have faced adversity. I told them everything. She hugged me tight. No matter what happens, I'm proud of you. Weeks later, the letter arrived. I opened it alone in the kitchen, hands shaking. Congratulations, full scholarship, fall admission. Tears blurred the words, but I didn't care. I had done it. Against everything, Cassandra's cruelty, Dad's abandonment, the fear, I had carved out a future. Rachel and I danced around the living room, the letter held high like a trophy. I'm going to college, I laughed, breathless. On my own terms. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt free. I thought I was ready to see them again. It had been almost a year since I left that house in the rain. A year of coffee-stained uniforms, late-night study sessions, and Rachel's unwavering friendship. A year of choosing myself, of rebuilding inch by inch what they tried to tear down. But nothing can truly prepare you to face the ghosts of your past, especially when they're still alive and wearing your jewelry. It started with an errand, simple, innocent. Rachel had a flat tire, and the only repair shop open on Sundays was the one near my old neighborhood. As we waited for the mechanic, I found myself walking aimlessly, pulled by memory down the familiar sidewalks of Roseville. And then there it was, the house, my house. The lawn was overgrown, the paint on the porch chipping. But the wind chimes still hung by the front door, the ones Mom bought when I was 6, shaped like tiny suns and moons. I should have walked away. But something, curiosity, defiance, maybe just stubborn hurt, made me step closer. Through the front window, I saw them. Cassandra perched on the couch like a queen, a glass of wine in her hand, laughter on her lips. Chloe beside her, scrolling her phone, wearing my necklace. The locket, Mom's locket, the one I thought I'd lost. The one Dad gave me the day she died. I froze. Before I could move, before I could think, I heard it. Laughter, not just theirs, but Dad's. He sat in his armchair, head tipped back, chuckling along with whatever story Cassandra was telling. I stood there outside in the shadows, watching my family enjoy a life that no longer included me. A life where I had been erased. I don't remember knocking. But the next thing I knew, the door swung open and Chloe stood there, eyebrows raised. Well, well, she said, smirking. Look who crawled back. Cassandra appeared behind her, wine glass still in hand. Ellie, she said smoothly, as if greeting a distant relative, not the girl she'd thrown into the rain. What a surprise. Had appeared last, his eyes meeting mine for the briefest moment, then flicking away, ashamed. Ellie, he murmured, voice barely audible. We weren't expecting. I was just walking by, I said coldly. Didn't mean to interrupt. Cassandra's smile widened. We were just talking about you, actually. Chloe's been wearing your old things, you left so much behind. She glanced at the locket on Chloe's neck, then back at me. You don't mind, do you? I couldn't breathe. Chloe twirled the chain between her fingers. It's cute, right? Vintage. That belonged to Mom, I whispered. Dad looked down. I didn't know it was missing, Cassandra replied casually. We figured you didn't want it. You did leave in quite a hurry. My hands clenched. You threw me out. Her eyes gleamed. You left. We all agreed it was for the best. Dad still said nothing. I took a shaky breath. I'm in college now, full scholarship. Cassandra's eyebrow arched. Good for you. You're not welcome here, Chloe added, stepping forward. This is our house. Our house. The words hit like a slap. I stared at Dad. Is that true? He opened his mouth, closed it, then nodded. You should go, he said softly. Don't stir things up. I turned, heart pounding, and walked away. I didn't cry, not then. Because in that moment something inside me hardened. I would build something they could never touch. And this time I wouldn't just walk away, I'd rise. After that day at the house, I didn't look back. Something had changed, snapped in me. Not broken, hardened. Their laughter, their mockery, that locket around Chloe's neck, it didn't make me crumble. It lit a fire. If they wanted to pretend I didn't matter, I would become someone impossible to ignore. It started small, always small. My architecture classes were grueling, but I loved every second. The long nights drafting floor plans, the sharp scent of graphite and eraser shavings, the click of my laptop keys as I pieced together 3D models. Designing spaces gave me control. Control over structure, over function. Control I never had in that house. I began studying the bones of buildings, especially abandoned ones, the forgotten homes on the edges of town, peeling and sagging but still standing. I saw something of myself in them. Not ruined, not worthless, just waiting to be rebuilt. Rachel, as always, stood by my side. We started researching together, city records, auctions, zoning laws. Most people skipped the abandoned properties because they were too far gone. Not me. I found a little house downtown, boarded up, covered in graffiti. The roof leaked, the floors buckled, but beneath the dust I saw potential. With savings from the coffee shop, a small grant from school, and Rachel's help, I bought it. I remember standing on the porch the day the papers were signed. My name on the deed. Mine, not Cassandra's, not Dad's, mine. We gutted the inside together, Rachel and I in paint-splattered clothes, laughing as we pulled up rotted carpet and swept years of dirt into the street. We lived off instant noodles and cheap coffee, working by flashlight when the power went out. It was hard. It was exhausting. It was freedom. Word spread. Old classmates, neighbors, even teachers started noticing my work. I posted photos online, before and after shots, captions filled with grit and hope. One post, just a selfie of me in the finished kitchen holding a paint roller, went viral. I didn't mean for it to. The caption was simple: started from pain, built from fire. Thousands of likes. Comments from people I hadn't spoken to in years. You did it, Ellie. Proud of you. You turned it all around. I didn't post for attention. I posted because I wanted to mark the moment, wanted to prove, if only to myself, that I had risen. A week later, I bought a loft. Downtown. Exposed brick. Big windows. Mine. The first night I stayed there, I sat on the floor, no furniture yet, just me and the hum of the city outside. For the first time in a long time, I felt safe. Safe in my skin, in my space, in my choices. I posted a photo, just the empty room, sunlight streaming across the hardwood. Home isn't where they let you stay, it's what you build when they shut the door. The next morning, there was a knock. I opened the door and there they stood. Cassandra, Chloe, and Dad. For a moment, all I could do was stare. Cassandra wore her best smile, the kind that fooled strangers but never me. Chloe hung back, arms crossed, bored. Dad looked uncertain. Ellie, Cassandra said sweetly, we saw your post. The loft is beautiful. I said nothing. We thought, she continued, stepping inside without waiting, this might be a good time to reconnect as a family. I blinked. Reconnect? Dad cleared his throat. We've all made mistakes. Cassandra nodded, eyes gleaming. It's time for unity. Family wealth should be shared after all. The loft, well, it's part of your journey. And we supported you in our way. Don't you think it's fair to split the value? Silence. I looked at her. At Chloe, who now wore Mom's locket like a trophy. At Dad, who still couldn't meet my eyes. Then I laughed, not loud, not bitter, just enough. I walked to the door and held it open. No, I said calmly. You taught me what family isn't. I built this. You don't get a share. Cassandra's smile faltered. Ellie, don't be petty. I stepped closer. You threw me out in the rain, you wore what wasn't yours, and now you want what I made. Dad reached out. Please, I stepped back. You left me once. Now I'm leaving you. And I shut the door. They didn't give up. Of course they didn't. People like Cassandra don't take no for an answer. They just repackage the demand and knock again. The morning after I slammed the door in their faces, Rachel and I were in the loft kitchen sipping coffee from mismatched mugs when my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. Ellie, a voice said as soon as I answered. It's Dad. My stomach turned. I don't want to fight, he said quickly. I just want to talk. I stared out the window, watching the city pulse with life beneath the morning sun. I thought about all the years I'd waited for him to talk, to stand up for me, to see me. And now, when I had something they wanted, suddenly he found his voice. I'm listening, I said flatly. There was a pause. Cassandra's right. Family needs to stick together. I almost laughed. We want to make things right, he continued. You've done well. The loft, it's a big investment. And since some of the money you used to start came from your old college fund, money your mother and I saved, well, it's only fair we all benefit. Chloe's starting to think about her future, too. A sharp chill ran down my spine. My college fund. The one Mom set up before she got sick. The one Cassandra had nearly drained after Mom's funeral, using it for household needs. I remembered the paperwork I'd found, years ago, buried in a drawer. I was too young then to understand what it meant, but I wasn't now. That money wasn't yours, I said. It was for your future, he replied smoothly. And it got you here, so why not share? Because people who throw you away in the rain don't get to share what you rebuild in the sun, I hung up. Rachel found me on the balcony an hour later, staring at the skyline, the city humming below. "They're desperate," she said, holding out a mug of tea. "They're greedy," I replied. "They want what they didn't earn." Rachel sat beside me. "So, what now?" I took a slow breath. "I'm going to end this." That afternoon, I went to the county records office. I didn't know exactly what I was looking for, only that I needed answers. Real legal answers about Mom, about the house, about everything. The clerk, an older man with kind eyes, listened patiently as I explained. My mother passed when I was 10. Her name was Amelia Evans. She owned the house at 327 Maple Street before she died. I need to know what happened to it, who owns it now. He typed quickly, pulling up digital files. Then he frowned. "Interesting," he murmured, clicking through pages. "What?" He pointed to a scanned document. "Your mother deeded the house to a minor beneficiary to you, effective on your 18th birthday." I stared. "Wait, it's mine." He nodded. "It was transferred into your name automatically when you turned 18, but someone filed for conservatorship over your inheritance after your mother's death. A Daniel Evans." My voice shook. "Can I get a copy of this?" "Of course." I left the office with a folder clutched in my hands, heart pounding. They had lied. The house was legally mine, and they'd hidden it, pretending it was Cassandra's, pretending I had no claim. This wasn't just greed, it was theft. That night I posted one more photo, not of a loft or a house, but of the deed, the document naming me as the rightful owner. No caption, just facts. Within hours, the post exploded. Messages poured in. Old classmates, teachers, even Chloe's former friends, and then comments from strangers, women, girls, people who had been erased, stepped over, stolen from. "You inspire me. I'm reclaiming what's mine too. Thank you for showing us we can rise." The next morning, there was another knock. Rachel answered the door. It wasn't Cassandra this time. It was a lawyer. In his hand, a letter. Intent to claim shared ownership of the Maple Street house and recent loft acquisition on behalf of Daniel and Cassandra Evans. I smiled. "Good," I whispered. "Let them come." The courthouse was colder than I expected. Not in temperature, but in atmosphere. Everything felt heavy. The air, the silence, the weight of what this day meant. I sat at the plaintiff's table, my hands folded tightly in my lap, the folder of documents resting in front of me like a shield. Across the room, Cassandra sat stiffly, dressed in her best blazer, eyes sharp and unflinching. Chloe was beside her, bored, chewing gum as if this was some minor inconvenience. And my father, he looked older, smaller, gray at the temples, hollow around the eyes. I barely recognized him. They avoided looking at me. Good. Let them sit in the discomfort. Let them feel what I had felt all those years, forgotten, betrayed, silenced. My lawyer, Ms. Tran, stood beside me, calm, focused, fierce in her quiet way. We had spent weeks gathering everything. The deed, the conservatorship paperwork, the bank statements that proved how Cassandra funneled money from my college fund into personal accounts. There was no denying it. Not anymore. The judge, a stern woman with a reputation for zero tolerance toward frivolous claims, entered the courtroom. "All rise." We stood. My heart pounded as the proceedings began. Cassandra's lawyer went first, delivering a polished statement about family unity and mutual contributions to shared assets. He painted me as estranged, distant, and emotionally unstable, a young woman guided by resentment rather than reason. Cassandra nodded along, dabbing her eyes with a tissue like she'd won an award for best performance. Then it was our turn. Ms. Tran stood, voice steady. "Your Honor, this case is not about shared wealth. It is about stolen wealth. Assets rightfully belonging to Ellie Evans, misappropriated and concealed by her stepmother and father over a decade." She held up the deed. "This document, signed by the late Amelia Evans, clearly deeds the property at 327 Maple Street to Ellie Evans, effective on her 18th birthday. At that time, the property became solely hers, yet the defendants continued to occupy it, collect rent from tenants, and denied her access." She continued, laying out the timeline. The conservatorship, the drained college fund, the false eviction. Every word felt like a scalpel cutting through years of manipulation and lies. Then I was called to the stand. I took a breath and walked slowly, refusing to show fear. Ms. Tran asked simple questions. Did I live in the house until I was 16? Yes. Was I forced out? Yes. Did I have knowledge of the deed? No, until recently. Did my father or Cassandra ever tell me I was the legal owner? No, never. Finally, the judge leaned forward. Miss Evans, she said, her voice crisp, do you believe your father knowingly withheld your inheritance? I looked directly at him, and for the first time in years, I wasn't a child begging for love. I was a woman demanding truth. Yes, I said clearly. He knew, and he let her take everything. A beat of silence. My father's head dropped. He didn't deny it. The ruling came swiftly. The court finds in favor of Ellie Evans, the judge declared, her gavel striking like thunder. All rights to the property at 327 Maple Street are to be restored to the plaintiff immediately. Furthermore, restitution for misappropriated funds from the plaintiff's college account will be determined in a separate hearing. Cassandra stood, shouting, "This is outrageous." The judge silenced her with a glance. "This is justice," she said. Outside the courthouse, sunlight broke through clouds. I stood on the steps, the cold wind whipping through my coat, clutching the court order in my hand. Behind me, Rachel stepped close, her voice warm. "You did it." I nodded, tears stinging my eyes, but not from sadness, from release, from triumph. My father approached, slow, tentative. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't know how to fix things." I stared at him. "You could have protected me," I said. "You chose silence." His eyes filled with tears. "I still love you." I took a breath. "I don't need your love anymore." Then I turned and walked away. 2 weeks later, I stood in front of the house on Maple Street, key in hand. Mine, at last. The lock clicked, the door creaked open, and I stepped inside. The walls needed paint. The floorboards groaned. But to me, it was beautiful, because I wasn't the broken girl they discarded. I was the woman who reclaimed it all. Thank you for watching my story. If you've ever felt powerless, if someone's ever tried to erase your worth, remember this: they don't define you. You do. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and if you've ever had to fight for what's rightfully yours. I read every word. Until next time.